Before I hand over the session to our trainer, allow me to briefly introduce our expert trainer today. We are delighted to be joined by Daryl Evans. He's an experienced facilitator and program designer who specialized in regulatory aligned leadership, ethics, and compliances training. So Daryl's work spans insurance, financial services. Daryl, correct me if I'm wrong on this one. So utilities and public sector. So where he supports organizations in meeting regulatory expectations while strengthening leadership behaviors and accountability. Also, not to forget, he also has co-developed delivered centered insurance institute and also FCA aligned programs for leading multinational organizations such as Zurich, AXA, and also Kafulat, as well as financial authorities across Europe, Africa, and Central Asia. They're also highly skilled in digital delivery, using virtual facilitation and also, to run simulation-based workshops, regulatory scenario discussions, and ethic clinics online. So we truly fortunate to have him guide today on our conversation. And now, without further delay, I'll hand over to our trainer, Daryl, to begin the today's session. Daryl?
Thank you very much. Thanks very much. Okay. Welcome everybody to today's session. Really great to have you here. We have about the next 60 minutes with each other, so I want to make sure that this session is kind of genuinely useful for where you are now and the challenges that we're all facing. So as we move through today's session, we're going to be looking at three different kind of discussions, really. In part one, we'll have a look at what is changing in HR and talent acquisition kind of in the region right now. In part two, we'll look at where AI can add value, but where human judgment is still very much required. And then in part three, we'll look at how skills, employee experience, and retention, they work really as one kind of connected system. And as we go through, we will run some polls. We'll take some questions. Going to show you a little demo, and we'll take you through some case studies as well of what some global organizations are doing and are up to right now. This session actually makes up part one of a 5 webinar series. I'll be taking sessions 1 and 2 in this, and as much as possible, it will be tailored to yourself. I've been working very extensively out in the GCC since 2018, so I know the region well, especially the UAE and Saudi specifically. Okay, so let's move on and begin our discussion with part one then. What's changing in HR and talent acquisition for 2025 and 2026 this year? There are, I would say, 3 main forces which are kind of reshaping HR right now across the GCC. Nationalization pressure, as I'm sure you all know, continues to be significant. The pressure's pretty much intensifying rapidly. The fines and the costs are real, and the challenges of getting people in the right place at the right time with the right skills. In addition to this, many organizations are moving to skills-based hiring, where they realize that qualifications, certifications on their own, they're not good enough at solving the capability gaps and making sure that we have the right people in. It is actually skills, and we'll talk a little bit about why skills-based hiring has been a bit of a transition in recent years specifically. And then finally, we've got AI adoption, of course. AI has very much moved now from kind of the experimentation trying things out phase and onto kind of really an operational expectation. Customers are expecting to see AI now in how they interact with businesses. We are expecting employees to get to grips with AI and how to use it in their roles so that they can help drive efficiency and quality of service. And there are many different HR challenges around AI adoption, from helping bring the skill set up of the people that we work with through to the policies, procedures, and governance that we put around it. I think what's important to realize is that the trends which are shaping this right now, they are not three individual trends, they are all actually interconnected. So, for example, a new AI innovation comes out and changes the skill set which is required. This, of course, creates skill shortages that we have to find a way to fill alongside the pressure of the localization targets, and that affects how we go about workforce planning and retention. And the organizations that are struggling the most are those that are treating these as isolated challenges and not challenges that are all connected together. I mean, certainly it's important to realize that compliance and nationalization targets, they've not been optional for a little while now, but there's no longer soft encouragement, shall we say. The fines are escalating, the requirements are getting more difficult. And if you just look at the amount of non-compliant firms in some of these statistics, for example, over 1,300 firms had already been penalised in the UAE. 107,000 firms were found non-compliant in recent years in Saudi. So everybody is working very hard to make sure at the moment that we have the local population and the local workforce in order to meet these targets. But increasingly, this is becoming challenging as the targets go up and technology change and requirements gets tougher and tougher and tougher. Let's talk a little bit about skills-based hiring. So what is skills-based hiring? Well, skills-based hiring is a recruiting approach where employers, they evaluate candidates primarily on their actual abilities and competencies rather than their, if you like, the classic credentials and qualifications that we maybe previously looked at, like college degrees or job titles or years experience. What we've basically found is that we've been doing those things for a long time, and there's a number of challenges associated with that. Just because somebody has a degree does not mean that they have the ability to apply that knowledge in the workforce. Job titles can be vary quite wildly. We know this. A junior position in one organization can be a very senior position in another organization. The word manager can be taken to mean very different things, from someone who just looks after processes to somebody who looks after large teams, and years of experience. I always say, when it comes to years of experience, does somebody have 20 years experience, or do they have 1 year's experience 20 times because they have done the same thing over and over again? In their own way, all of these things can deceive us somewhat into somebody's kind of true capability and competence. And it's a real issue. In the GCC, 90% of GCC employers are reporting significant skills gaps, with 63% of those reporting skills gaps as their number one challenge, barrier, if you like, to transformation and growth. And this is set to accelerate. 40% of job skills are likely to change by 2030 as we see new innovations and changes to kind of expectations in what we need people to do. And specifically technology, specifically AI, we're looking more like 60% for AI exposed roles. And what that's meaning is that people's kind of historic qualifications that they did 15 to 20 years ago, they absolutely are an indicator of someone's intelligence and ability, but actually, the thing has moved on quite a lot now. What it is they need to do has moved on quite a lot. If you just think about if someone did a degree, say, in telecommunications, get my phone out of my pocket, if they'd done a degree in telecommunications sort of 20 years ago, and then they were to time travel from them to now, how much would they know about how we currently communicate on mobile devices? Not a lot at all, really. That would be a big challenge for them. So as a result, about 85% of firms have now moved to some kind of skills based hiring. And this is where we're moving from instead of asking about whether or not someone has a 4-year degree or if they've worked this exact role in the last 4 years, we are looking more at can they do the work and what skills can they actually demonstrate here during the selection process. And what this has the effect of when we do that, when we focus more on ensuring that we get people that demonstrate the skill sets that we need first and then demonstrate qualifications, certifications, etc. second, it actually has the effect of loosening the labor market. We end up with more people to pick from and more people apply from our roles. In one McKinsey study, for example, an employer that rewrote their job postings around skills instead of degree qualifications quadrupled their applications in literally the first week. It's important to note, though, that it is a HR challenge to implement skills-based hiring effectively. And there is, even in the firms which have chosen to adopt it, these 85% who are using it in some form, there is a gap between the policy of doing skills-based hiring and actually what practice is going on. In the same study, at some large firms, fewer than 1 in 700 new hires were non-degree graduates, even in roles where degree requirements had been officially removed, for example. Now, this doesn't have to be a degree. This could stand in for anything. A particular certification or credential is what we're saying. When that had been removed, fewer than 1 in 700 hires were made. And what this showed really is that removing a line, a description from a job ad doesn't really change what happens in the hiring manager's head. Um, Essentially, that person still will rely on the way that they've always done things to help decide who should be successful in their role. And in order to combat that, what we as HR have to introduce is new assessment tools that help to replace, or should we say, complement the degree filter in order for this decision making to change. And the kind of assessment tools that are working effectively during selection for skills-based hiring are things like work sample tests, skills assessments. It could be something like situational judgment test or structured situational interviews where you give people a scenario, you ask them to respond to the scenario, you give people a test on how they use Microsoft Excel or Power BI, for example, and you have them do a small task around that. Or maybe you put them in some kind of business simulation environment. Some industries like hospitality, particularly working in sort of working kitchens with chefs, might invite those people in to come and work perhaps a lunch service or a dinner service and see how they are actually able to cook the food. These are much more reliable methods of skill-based hiring that help hiring managers to make those good decisions. It's important to note that whilst this going on, AI has reached really what I would say is a critical tipping point. We are now very much past the early adoption phase, and most organizations are using AI in some respect in HR. In fact, 88% of organizations are using AI in at least one HR function. Um, the growth of AI has been explosive. Um, and that is creating massive requirements AI fluency, employees that can speak AI, that understand the fundamentals of AI and how it can be deployed. The requirements for that have gone up almost 7 times in the last 2 years alone, as these tools just become part of our daily lives and our workflows. Organizations and HR functions need to take note here, because there are both opportunities and challenges that this creates, which we cannot ignore. Organizations in AI exposed industries, for example, are able to generate potentially 27% revenue more per employee where AI is integrated properly. Um, the top 5 industries that are exposed to AI are currently financial services, tech and software, professional services and consulting, telecoms and media, and healthcare and pharma. But as I'm sure you've all experienced and are seeing, as the AI tools get better and better and better, and we get more of them, more and more industries will be exposed to this. So if yours is not feeling particularly exposed already, give it a few years and it will be there with the rest of us. That presents really an opportunity that we can chase after and grab hold of. There also is, of course, challenges that go alongside this. Professionals, for example, with advanced AI skills are now commanding a 56% salary premium over those who are not, and that is up from 25% in 2014. So this is a real indicator here that during our workforce planning, if we need to bring these skills in, we are potentially going to have to um, very much we're going to have to very much plan to be paying more money for these skills, or we're going to have to be planned to develop these internally. So what I'd like to do is run a quick slide poll. Oh, Yashika, could I please have the host back so I could run a poll?
Give me 1 second, Daryl.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, so what I'd like to do is run a quick poll and just find out which of these challenges your organizations is feeling most right now. That poll should be open for you to vote in. Is it pressure to hire or develop national talent? Are we struggling to find people with the right skills for the roles we need? Is it figuring out how and where to use AI in our processes? Keeping people once we've hired them? Or is it all of the above? Give another 30 seconds or so for people to cast their votes. All right, thank you very much. And thanks very much for the votes in chat as well. So we've got about 20, 25 votes in or so, and 50% or so of those have all of the above: pressure and challenges around all of them, with other high points of keeping people once we've hired them, retention being the biggest challenge. I think that's definitely borne out in the experience that we're all having and the data that we're seeing. Certainly in Saudi and Riyadh, I would describe the market right now as white hot. People are moving very, very quickly from role to role, from opportunity. Okay, so let's go ahead and return to our discussions then. So I want to move on our discussion to part two, which is kind of where AI adds value and where human judgment remains essential in the process. So where AI genuinely adds value has been something of much interest to researchers, observers, and organizations ever since it burst onto the screen around 3 or 4 years ago and became the new shiny object in the room. And it has very much proven not to be just a shiny object. It has real application, real benefits, real strategic value for organizations. And it is delivering clear operational value all across departments and HR in a couple of different areas. We can see here from the statistics on the screen that the biggest areas where it has been deployed effectively so far has been in content creation, from things like job descriptions, assessments, communications, through to things like scheduling and data processing. And then to a lesser degree, uh, it's being used to reduce kind of time to hire, being used for candidate skills matching, being used for things like workforce planning. The biggest gains really for how AI can be implemented is from a combination of enabling speed, enabling scalability, doing more of what we want to be able to do, ensuring that we get consistent support, and reducing overall administrative burden. And depending on where it is you're working and how it is you're applying, you may, I think, find your own efficiencies get driven up perhaps even further than these percentages suggest. I think what's important to note is that AI works best when it augments decision making, when it helps us to make decisions and be better. If we take the example from IBM, for example, IBM, they implemented AI inferred skills profiles, which they built for all 350,000 employees that they operate. So the AI basically looked through a number of different factors, from the employee's job role, their CV, it looked through their performance appraisal data, it looked through recent projects that they had been involved in, and it created skills profiles for those employees so that it could be pumped into a skills matrix and we knew what skills and capabilities were in IBM as an organization. Then for those those skills profiles were actually used and deployed, they were basically sent out to the employees themselves and they were validated by the employees, where 80% of those employees confirmed that the AI generated profile was 100% accurate, which was actually more accurate than self-reporting when employees created their own lists and forgot and left things out that they didn't remember doing, or skill sets that they didn't remember applying. That's a great example of a tool that now powers IBM's internal talent marketplace, and they have much better visibility over who is in the organization and what they do. So I think we need to think about it this way. When your team becomes genuinely competent and AI enabled, you still have the same team and they still do all the same things, but now they all have superpowers in terms of the amount of work which they can produce and the quality of that work. It isn't all great news, though. There are some challenges, and there's a couple of cases that HR professionals, I think, should know, which highlight some of the challenges with using AI in HR applications, which need to be carefully managed. If we take Amazon, for example, Amazon also deployed and built and deployed an AI hiring tool, which was trained on 10 years of CV data, but the CV data that it was trained on was mostly male. And because of the data which was used to train the AI essentially learned from that data that male equals successful. As a result, their CV sifting tool, it penalized CVs containing the word women or women's. It downgraded women's college graduates. It favored like verbs and terms which were more common in male CVs. Now, nobody tried to design this AI tool to be biased, but there was bias encoded inside the data which was used to train the AI. And what happened was the AI then amplified this at scale when they tried to apply it across all different areas. So it took basically some isolated problems and pockets and distributed it across the whole organization because we hadn't realized those issues are in the data. Equally speaking, another popular talent acquisition selection tool, HireVue. I don't know if anyone's used HireVue. It's definitely quite popular in the GCC as well as in the Western world actually as well. It's an AI video interview platform. And what they found is that the transcription rate had vastly different errors based on the accents of the different speakers. So less than 10% for US English speakers, it was very, very accurate. But then a 22% error rate for non-native English speakers and a 35% error rate for African and South Asian accents. How the AI reported this, though, was what was important. Errors are reported as lower clarity and engagement scores. So, in reality, this was not a capability issue that these candidates had. It was just that they had a different accent, and the AI, which had been trained on US English speakers, was not able to discern between the different accents of English being spoken. So again, there another example of how kind of data and a lack of understanding on some of the possible outcomes that we could get from AI means that challenges are created. So this creates a bit of a governance gap and some legal risk as well. Now, specifically to HR, like what is happening? Well, 30% of organizations deploy 80% of their AI-generated HR output without any human review whatsoever. That is a bit of a problem. Speaking of those last two case studies, we cannot afford to take humans out of the loop because AI doesn't get it every time, right every time. As mentioned, AI is going to make us faster, it's going to make us more efficient, it's going to help us to do more things, but it is not currently a perfect solution. And that is actually replicated too in the changes to legislation that we are seeing. Different bodies legislate and create laws for different countries or different sectors, but the message is pretty consistently the same. Whether or not it's looking in Saudi or say the UAE, essentially the implementation of AI that we do must be explainable, it must be auditable, and it must be overseen by humans. The technical term for this is called human in the loop. We must have humans in the loop of all of the decisions that we're using AI to make in order that we can stay legally compliant. A particular challenge for HR, though, look at this piece of data on the right, this bar chart. This bar chart was from a McKinsey study which showed that employees using AI tools that are not provided by their organization by generation. So you look at the age of the employees. At the lowest amount, 73%, rising to 85% of employees were using AI tools to do their work that are not provided by their organization. That shows two things. It shows that the AI adoption is already happening, even if it is not part of our HR and organizational strategy. It's happening without us. We don't want that. We need to get ahead of it. The second thing is if you think about our governance gap and our legal risk, if that many employees, the vast majority of our employees, are using AI tools that we haven't even provided, how can we possibly be ensuring that there is a human in the loop and human oversight? How can we ensure that there are no, for example, commercial sensitive data risks or data protection risks? What are employees putting into these AI tools? We have to think very carefully about the type of policies and governance frameworks that we put in place and how we monitor and oversee these as HR. So I'd like to give you a quick practical tool to kind of take away in terms of how you best think of applying AI. And the practical tool is called the ACH tagging method. So for any HR task, you should be asking when you think about deploying AI, should this be automated? Should it be collaborating on? Or should it be humanized? Automating with AI is best reserved for tasks which are repetitive, they're very rule-based, they're high volume. So things like interview scheduling, things like reviewing CVs, things like KPI data collection, things like absence management. Collaborate is where we combine the computational power that AI gives us with human judgment. And this might be in sort of preparing for appraisals or setting goals. Maybe we're using AI to draft the notes from this meeting, for example, or the meeting that you have been in. We should still oversee it to make sure that it is accurate. We should look at the data it's collected, and if it's come up with some good goals, and maybe we edit these and make sure that they're aligned to what we want them aligned. But AI certainly can increase the speed of what we are doing. And then finally, what should we humanize? This is work which fundamentally requires uniquely human capabilities. So this might be running the interview. This might be holding the annual appraisal itself. This might be running the disciplinary meeting or the coaching session. Things that uniquely require human capabilities to be successful. A good example of this can be seen with CV sifting. So with CV sifting, you're looking at AI scanning applications for roles and matching skills and keywords. This can be automated, compliance checking their eligibility, flagging whether or not they have the right to work and how it impacts our nationalization targets. All of this could be automated. From a collaborating process, the AI could produce a ranked shortlist, and maybe it could do a blind shift option as well, a blind sift option as well. Blind sifting or CV blinding is the process where you take off some of the protected characteristics, people's gender, age, etc., to prevent hiring managers from being able to discriminate against this, even with unconscious bias they don't think that they have. AI can accelerate it, we can check it, and finally, the final decision shortlist, who should get interviewed. This should have human level oversight. I'm going to show you a quick example of how AI could be built into this. This is an example, I'll zoom in slightly, of a simple AI agent that was produced during our work with Miral in the UAE. So In this simple AI agent that was produced, this AI agent was able to essentially evaluate multiple CVs against a set of defined job descriptions, competency matrix, and then help us to produce a shortlist for the interview and an interview pack. And it is linked to, this is of course dummy data, practice data. It is linked to several different roles or allows the creation of a market intelligence report to help us understand how in demand those is. So let's go ahead and select one. So we can go ahead and select evaluate for the digital candidate guest experience lead. And what the AI is going to do now is it is going to pull not just random what is this from online, it's going to take it from a specific job description and competency framework, which we have locked the AI into using, and it's going to ask me to upload those CVs. So I'll pull those CVs across and ask it to evaluate those candidates. So it's then going to take the CVs which have been produced for me. And what it's going to do is it's going to compare those against the competency requirements of the roles which we have given it and provide me a summary of the candidate evaluation. And it's going to do it the same way each and every time, regardless of how I prompt it, because I've given it a template on what to do. And we can find in this evaluation that actually Ahmed scored the highest for these key strengths, but still has some gaps. And the AI is recommending interviews for 1 and 2, but a hold on 3. Importantly, it's giving me the overall scores and judgments that I can then oversee as a person. And then it's asking, okay, so please confirm which candidates we'd like to generate interview packs for. Well, in this case, I would like just to go ahead and interview Ahmed. So just Ahmed, please. It's going to go ahead and then generate me an interview pack, which gives a candidate summary, a list of the key strengths and development areas. It's actually then built me some suggested competency-based interview questions. These are questions that I should ask the candidate when they come for the interview, because that information is important to the job role. It's important to our skills map, our competency matrix, and to our company, but it wasn't shown in the initial CV and application that was given. And then it's going to ask me whether or not I would like to export this interview pack as PDF. So I'm going to say, yes, please, give me the PDF. At this point, it's basically collecting. Apologies, I put a problem with my mic there. It collects everything together. It brings it all together in an interview pack, which is downloadable, and I can pass this on to the hiring manager. Now, tools like this are being built and deployed all over industry. McKinsey, for example, the largest management consultancy in the world, we've looked at some of their data today. They have already applied some of these tools, more than some actually. They have what they call their AI black belts, graded between levels 1 and 5, where they measure the capabilities of employees to use AI tool like this. They make sure that they've got one in each client account, and McKinsey has now designed and developed AI tools and agents like this, 12,000 of them, in fact, all over their operations and their work with clients. And the point about this is that this requires no coding. It requires a relatively low level of technical skill, but a good level of foundational understanding in AI, and it allows the organization to control the AI's use. That tool can be managed centrally. We can make sure it's managed against a policy, and it can be distributed to any employees that we want to use it. And generally speaking, it can be developed on whichever AI platform that we we kind of want. So either Microsoft with Copilot, if we are on the Microsoft suite, Gemini, if we're on the Google suite, OpenAI, if we're using ChatGPT, etc. So I'd like to go ahead and open a second poll for now, and I would like to know from everybody, please, has your organization started using AI in the process, in the HR processes? Are you A, actively using it, B, piloting or experimenting, C, no, but you're planning to? Oh, this is not the right poll. I apologize. I don't know what happened to the poll here. My apologies. Let me just go ahead and fix that real quick. Give me 2 seconds. Okay, and this should be coming up for you now.
Yes, all good. It's okay
Fixed
now.
now. Thank you. Okay, so as the votes come in and looking at what we've got in the chat as well, it looks like that some of us, around 15%, are actively using it, with a further 20-25% planning, but we have almost half which are planning to but aren't there yet, and about 1/5 of us where it's not yet on the agenda. So definitely some focus areas there that we want to be looking at so that we can stay ahead of the game. Okay then. So moving on then to skills, experience, retention as one connected system, part 3. So I think most organizations are looking to optimize kind of isolated metrics, and they don't necessarily understand that all of these things are very, very much connected. It's all one system, and we need to stop managing it as 3 separate functions. There are some key issues with what's going on right now. Only 56% offer acceptance rate is currently going on in some industries in the GCC. We have an alarming amount of new hires which leave during the probationary period. And earlier on, we had everyone agreeing that actually one of the key challenges was holding on to people, retaining people that we collect. But 18% is almost 1 in 5 leaving during the probationary period. And actually, organizations are reporting less than a 50% hiring success rate. We need to fix these. And we need to understand that in the connected system of how we bring people in, of how we develop them, how we then retain them, it's all connected, and that recruitment, the way in which we bring people into the organization, that really starts our message, our relationship. It starts the employee life cycle with us from day one before they even walk through the door. So retention problems can actually start right from the recruitment messaging. If, for example, we are giving a, should we say, a picture of the organization which is different. We're painting a picture of the organization which is different to what it actually is. People then arrive, they feel like, I've not that I've been tricked, or this wasn't what I was kind of expecting here, and immediately they start to look for a new position. If we fix these numbers, we can change things dramatically. Reducing how much we have to pay people, reducing our turnover potentially by as much as almost 70%, and massively increasing new hire commitment. But what is it that we need to do in order to actually fix it? What is it that people want? Well, we should look at the data, and we should look at the data by surveying both our own workforce and employees with engagement and pulse surveys, and we should look at wider data within the marketplace, of which I have some of it here for you to understand the EVP gap, the gap in the employee value proposition that makes them stay and remain with us. Right now, it is showing that the number one priority for people is that job security becomes an issue. And the gap that people are feeling in their job security tends to be the impact of both workloads and roles being unclear. What's important here with job security, it is the perception of job security as much as the reality, which is important to people. If people feel that their role is unclear and they don't exactly know why they're there or why the organization needs them, they can feel unsecure, even though you might speak to HR or their line manager, and their line manager and HR says, we could not do without this person. But that person may have the perception that actually they're not very secure in their own post, and that needs to be fixed. Flexible schedules. 50% of employees want compressed work weeks, but only 33% have access to flexible work in some way at the moment. The 50% that want compressed work weeks as well. It's interesting what this data shows. It isn't always showing that they actually want to work less hours. When you delve into the data, a big complaint that employees have is how much time they spend commuting, for example. Now, some of that could be fixed maybe by allowing some level of remote working where employees could work from home, but some of it could be fixed by flexible schedules, allowing when we come in and out of the building. ADNOC, for example, in Abu Dhabi, allows its office-based staff to come in anytime in a 2-hour period, and then it flexes the time that they're able to leave as well, but allows it to plan around their schedule and the traffic a little bit better. AI upskilling is seeing significant movement, with almost 50% expect AI to change their roles. This is causing them to be nervous, maybe look for new positions, look for new development opportunities. Only 25% of organizations currently have proactive AI L&D strategies, and that I think would probably be reflected in the data of the poll that we just did among us. Pay keeping pace. 80% of people are willing to leave for better pay. That is up 25% from last year, and it is showing that the cost of living is starting to outpace salary growth. So we need to look at how can we support employees with that, either with higher salaries, or is there any way that we can bring the cost of living down? Sometimes we can do things for employees that have a better return from us. Take insurance, for example. It is much cheaper to buy insurance as a group than it is as an individual. We've seen lots of schemes like insurance for parents happening in the region in the last few years, a major expense for many employees, but if bundled together to lower the risk for the insurance company, the premium comes down. And so this is becoming a very important retention tool. So anything that you can look for with employees, cost of education, insurance for extending the healthcare umbrella, shall we say, to the wider family unit is a fantastic retention tool. And career path visibility. 28% of people surveyed cited a lack of career paths as a key frustration, that they didn't know where they were going. And in a market, the GCC now, Saudi and Riyadh, kind of especially, which is so white hot with opportunities, if people don't have a clear career path and where they're going in your organization, it's going to be very easy for them to decide that they can shift off to a different opportunity. It's actually hits a cost of 62 billion reals annually to the Saudi economy. It's important to understand the cost of getting it wrong, and it's important to understand what we can do with getting it right. I think a really good example of an organization which is getting it right would be HP. HP have turned to AI to help them solve this problem, and they're using predictive AI analysis driven by their HR data and metrics. So they built an AI tool where they put in information on employee feedback, employee performance, engagement, career progression, exit interviews, etc. The AI looks for commonalities in the data, and then it looks at current existing employees to identify what they term as flight risk. These are employees that, based on a number of data markers, they feel may be looking for jobs, may be looking to move. After identifying the flight risk, then a human action can be taken. Targeted retention strategies deployed, be that development opportunities, be it rotation, be it flexible working, be it compensation reviews, whatever has been identified as that employee's issue. As a result of implementing that, they have seen a 5% turnover reduction overall, and over 3 years it returned almost an 850% ROI. This matters very importantly in the GCC, where replacing employees can be so costly. You are looking at between 70 to 150% of salary in the case of an expat, 60 to 120% of salary in the case of a national, and in specialist or senior roles, there are actually reports and data to support that it could be up to 400% of the actual employee's salary. For example, working with Saudi Rail a couple of years ago, Saudi Rail, because they needed to get railway train drivers who were Saudi nationals, it was a 2-year training program that they actually partnered with a UK company called National Rail in the UK in order to do. But 2 years of training before those people were ready to actually take on their positions. It's not something that could be ignored. So it is a case of look at why employees are choosing to leave in your own organizations, look at the data of what is happening, and start to implement different methods of fixing those issues. The key message here that I'd like to leave you with is that skills, experience, and retention, these are not 3 individual HR work streams. They are one system. We have to build it that way so that the experience and the way that we bring people on leads them to the experience they have during working with us, and the retention will begin to look after itself. That brings us to the end of the core content that I wanted to cover today. We're going to, I'll stay behind now so that we can do a bit of a Q&A. If anyone has any questions they would like to ask me, and I would be happy to go through with those. What I'd also like to say in terms of next steps is that we will be continuing to develop these webinars for a whole variety of different HR and AI topics. If you would like to have your say on what those topics cover and the types of programs that we run and deploy, please scan the first QR code and register your interest there, and you can find me on LinkedIn on the second QR code as well. Fantastic. Look forward to seeing you then.
Look
And
forward to
thanks
seeing
very
you as
much,
well.
everybody. We'll see you on session 2. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day ahead.